Good morning. 5:33. Uh, I'm not going to wait till tonight to do my video today. I'm going to jump on it right away because I have the inspiration to do so. Thanks to my friend Jared Campbell, who posted something on his wall and it was shared on my news feed. Now, I've known Jared since he was in his mid-teens. He was one of my son's best friends, and they've known each other all these years since Jared was about 15 or 16 years old. And he's the leader of the Brevard Busking Coalition. He's the front man, he's the entertainer of the year. Amazing school teacher, gifted musician, songwriter, amazing man. Anyway, he shared a video, or actually an article from Al Jazeera, The Shocking Number Behind Corporate Welfare, which leads to the title of today's video, The Corporate Welfare State. Forget all the names you've heard about types of government, except one, corporatocracy. If you don't know what that is, it is the new world order proposed by the so-called elite. It is government of corporations, by corporations, for corporations. If you haven't noticed, everything in the modern world has been corporatized. Yes, even people, but especially governments. Know this, corporations are, by legal definition, legal fictions. They are lies. We live in a world of lies run by liars. Is it any wonder things are as they are? Corporations are veils that try to hide the truth because those who run them don't want to see any reality except the one where they control everyone and everything. It is the madness of an ego that is separate from life itself. And yes, I do provide got to take out a letter here. I do provide the link to the article called Corporate Welfare Subsidies. You get a lot of conservative people that decry the fact that people that are hurting get welfare. People that are sick, people that are infirmed or in need one way or another. And people decry, conservatives especially, decry that. And yet these same conservatives see nothing wrong with helping corporations, and the statistics, state and local governments have awarded $110 billion in taxpayer subsidies to businesses, with 3 of every $4 going to fewer than 1,000 big corporations. Boeing gets $13.2 billion, followed by Alcoa with $5.6 billion, Intel at $3.9 billion, General Motors at $3.5 billion, Ford Motors at $2.5 billion. Unbelievable numbers, far dwarfing the amount of money that's paid to people. And then resources do not belong to corporations, they belong to people. All value is created by people. All value is in the creative and labor efforts of human beings. Human beings are the true value, not corporations. But everything has been inverted in our world. It is why doctors make patients sicker, which is because the pharmaceutical companies make put poison in their medicines when food is supposed to be the medicine. When natural things are supposed to be the medicine, they doctor everything. They doctor our food even. It is why there are such things as GMOs, because of corporations. It is why they pollute our air by putting chemtrails and heavy metals and biological weaponry and everything else in our very air that we have to breathe, because it makes them money, because they are sick, because we have allowed them to rule over us because we have not taken responsibility for our own lives. It is why the institutions teach lies, because the institutions are corporations, and everything that is corporatized is fiction. It's all a lie. We have become people of the lie, run by the biggest liars on the planet. The people who have mastered the art of making the ego the dominant force rather than the self or the soul or the spiritual aspect. They are people devoid of reason, devoid of compassion. It is us. It is a picture of us and what happens to each of us when we forget who we are, when we forget that we are interconnected with all of life, when we forget that it's cooperation, not competition, that produces the greatest rewards, when we forget that we are infinite beings having a temporal experience in time and space, when we forget that we have roots that go back into antiquity past and branches that spring forth into life everlasting, called the future, as we see it in the time-space continuum. We forget that we are the ones we have been waiting for, and we think that it's about corporations, fictions, the ego. It's not. It's about each of us awakening and remembering who we are, who we've always been, who we are becoming. And it's all the same. It's all the same. I don't decry anything that people get except when it makes them forget who they are and makes them subservient to the system, to the matrix, to corporations. When it devalues the human being and places the value only on the legal fictions and the structures that we have created. Structures are created to serve man, not dominate man. But everything has been turned around in our culture because we live in a corporatocracy. We live in a world where fictions have risen to the dominant place in our social structures and in everything that comes under those social structures. And we forget that we created them to serve us. And the people that run them have no intention except to keep running them for their own pleasure and for their own profit. Every corporation is a for-profit. Well, there are so-called non-profit corporations, but even they exist to make a profit. They don't exist to lose, they exist to win. And we can create win-win situations for everyone, but not in a corporatocracy, not in a land or in a world where everything comes from corporations, it's run by corporations, for corporations. That's the opposite of what Abraham Lincoln said, that the nation of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Well, let's not let it perish. Let's revive that standard of republics that exist to serve people, where governance is something that serves man and enriches man and empowers man to become the best man can be. And when I say man, it's a neutral term. It's not a gender-specific term. It means humankind. We don't have that in our English language like they do in the Russian language, which I learned from the Anastasia Bringing Cedars of Russia series. Man, she says, I am man. I am a woman. She understood what man meant. And she was of the female gender of man. Anyway, I was inspired to talk about this today because my legal documents that I've been working on the last 2 days make the distinction between the living soul, man, and the legal fiction, the corporations, including the courts, including everything that they do is a corporation. And one of the things, let's see if I can just grab that pen, looking at the paper here. Let's see if I can find that line. Oh, I put this little caveat in here. Please note that nothing in this special written appearance is to be construed as forming a contract between the sovereign witness and any corporate entity, for such a contract between unequal parties would be fraudulent and unlawful. But all the contracts that they have are between corporations, which means they're all null and void on their face. Corporate contracts are fictional contracts, all of them, because the value always comes from the people, never from the bank, the government, or the corporation. We need to get that through our heads. We need to understand that principle, because when we get it and we start acting on it, it will change the world. But until we get it and until we act on it, the world will continue to be a dog-eat-dog competition, and the survival of the economic fittest, the one who gets the most marbles, wins. Well, it's not that way. We are each other's brothers and sisters, and we are responsible to live in harmony, because if we don't live in harmony, we are on a self-destructive path, and we are walking like lemmings that will go over the cliff and fall to our doom until we rise back up again for the next time around, called reincarnation, where we'll play this game again and again and again till we get it. Now, it's interesting that the last couple of days I've had correspondence coming to me from Indonesia, and the latest one, Mr. Pri, tells me, Mr. Sino says, I am the first, my soul is the soul of the first man created by God, Adam, the first Adam. Now, I've been told lots of things, and I don't know. He told me to ask for a sign, and he says, Mr. Sino told, I was going to name someone, and I'm not going to do that, told someone who visited with Mr. Sugi, I keep saying Mr. Sino, but they want to use Mr. Sugi now, told him that I was to lead the delegation, that was the way he wanted it. I don't get that. Quite honestly, I still don't get it. And Mr. Pri says, ask for a sign. This other person who visited recently asked for a sign, and it was transformative. And listening to previous conversations, reports from this gentleman who visited in Indonesia, he's not a spiritual person, generally speaking. He admits that. He says that point blank. But there was a spiritual transformation that took place, and it was evident in the way he spoke. It was evident in the words that he chose. And he asked me, Mr. Pri asked me, ask for the sign, you'll be given the sign like him. So I want to make changes in the world. With all of my heart, I want to integrate and heal all the opposites. I want to heal even my attitude toward people that I think have a bad attitude toward me. And Mr. Pri and I talked about that in the correspondence from yesterday that he was responding to again today. And he asked me to please be neutral, that God created good people to play good roles and people to play bad roles. Please don't be too harsh on those that play the bad roles. That means even the corporate CEOs and CFOs and COOs. It means even the people that seem to be causing the most damage. Don't be too harsh on them, because they are just playing roles. I don't remember everything that Mr. Pri said. He writes very long letters. I mean, some of his correspondences are very lengthy. And I only went through this one today is one time. I oftentimes have to go back a second and third time to try to digest everything that's being said, which of course is also because of the fact that English is not his primary language, and He doesn't always say things in plain English as I would say them. But in any case, folks, I really want you to start to see how the world is that we live in. Not so that you can throw rocks, not so that you can form an opposition to something or to people, but so that we can understand how we've gotten where we are, and we can create something that changes that. And that has to be done through openness and honesty, as I said in not the video today, but the previous one about escaping the matrix, or getting out of the matrix, overcoming the matrix, I guess it was. We must be willing to be open and to cooperate with each other, and to not try to dominate. If I'm supposed to be some kind of a leader, it's not for the purpose of self-aggrandizement. It's not for the purpose of gaining power over anybody. It's not for the purpose of being able to tell people what to do. Those are qualities that I have no desire for. Even when I was a manager in my younger years, even before I moved to Florida 31 years ago, I was a manager. And it was the hardest thing for me to do, to have to discipline anybody, especially if I had to fire them. And I had to do that a couple of times. I mean, it broke my heart to have to do that. But my boss told me that that was my responsibility. And so I did it a couple of times during the time that I was the manager. But that's not, I've never relished hurting anybody. I've never relished bringing bad news to people. I've always wanted to lift people up. Even when I wanted to become a minister when I was younger, I thought the job of a minister is to bring the people to the level where the minister is no longer necessary. You don't need the shepherd to watch the sheep anymore, because the sheep aren't sheep anymore. They become their own, each becomes their own shepherd. And that was why I resist being a guru. I don't want to tell people what to do. I want people to find the answers within themselves, because the answers are within themselves. If we're going to get beyond the corporate welfare state, we're going to have to bring up leaders that have the attitude of servant, because the greatest among you shall be your servant. The king is the servant. The priest is the servant. The person who is the leader is the one who serves people and helps people to find the treasure within themselves, so that each can become fulfilled, so that each can become what they were created to be under God. And everything else comes through man. And we are over all of the structures. We are over corporations. We are over governments. We are over money. We are over all the tools and all the structures that we create for the purpose of serving one another and serving the spiritual values of reality, rather than just the temporal economic values. I hope I've given you a few things to think about today, and I do thank you for listening. I see it's going on to 19 minutes, so I better just say namaste. Have a beautiful day.